Hello, my name is Jacques. Welcome to the Canadian War Museum. I'd like to show you some of the highlights of the gallery in the museum. Here we have the Memorial Hall. It was designed to capture the light on November 11. The light is funneled through this window and it shines on the headstone of the fallen soldiers precisely at 11 o'clock. Here we have the map of the museum. We have 4 permanent galleries that goes from the colonial time in number 1 to the more recent conflicts in number 4. Here in Gallery 1, we start with the arrival of the first European, the French, who meet up with the First Nation. Then there's this encounter with the British, who also wants to take control of North America. This all, culminates on the Plains of Abraham, where the British won a 20-minute battle that changed the shape of Canada. Here we have a very famous British tunic that once belonged to Isaac Brock. Isaac Brock was a British general who fought this American invasion in 1812. This hole in his uniform, it's a hole that was made by a musket ball, but his troops and the First Nation who supported them won this battle against the Americans. So here in Gallery number 2, we start with the South African War, which was the first time that Canadian soldiers were sent overseas. One of the main highlights of Gallery 2 are the trenches. Some trenches are being reproduced here in the museum. Trench warfare was central to the type of warfare we have in World War I. And as you move along, you'll get into the Battle of Vimy Ridge, which was a very famous battle that basically put Canada on the map. This gallery is Gallery number 3, and it's all related to the Second World War. Over here, we have one of the most infamous cars in the Nazi history. It's the car that once belonged to Adolf Hitler. So here we have the first flight simulator ever made in Canada. This is what they use for their training. This is the home front section of the museum of Gallery 3. And here we have a reproduction of a store during World War II. So now we get into the Cold War gallery, Gallery 4. In this gallery, we start with the first conflict that erupted during the Cold War, the Korean War, and then we move on to the nuclear threat. We complete the gallery with the conflict in Afghanistan. If this looks familiar to you, you might be right, because this is a maquette of the actual memorial that we have here in downtown Ottawa. This is a monument that was erected after the First World War to commemorate our Canadian soldiers who fought the First World War. So here we are in the Regeneration Hall, and we're standing in a section of the railing that's made out of glass. There's a reason for this, because the architect wanted the visitor to realize that when you look out the window, you see the Peace Tower. So over here we have 12 original maquettes that were designed by a Canadian sculptor by the name of Walter Alward. They all carve into the Vimy Memorial in France. So here we are in La Bretonne Gallery. This is where we have our military vehicles collection. It goes from the small carrier to the big tank and passing by the howitzer and other piece of equipment. Here at the Canadian War Museum, we have one of the largest war art collections, and we have a very good example here of a painting that depicts the Battle of Vimy Ridge. Thanks for joining us for this quick tour at the Canadian War Museum. I hope to see you here soon.